This is the Get a Life podcast. Ex-Cult Conversations.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Get a Life podcast, Ex-Cult Conversations. Today, we are joined by Carmen and Richard, and we have Lynette on again. We are going to dive in very thoroughly to the Chicago Barrington meeting room deal that was canceled and unravel a lot of the lies that the PBCC set forward, as they always do. So we're going to jump literally right into it.
The story up till now is that the Chicago Brethren congregation have been trying to purchase a 33-acre site for a meeting hall in the Chicago suburb of Barrington. And this proved highly controversial. The residents didn't want them there. And the story to date is that there have been two public meetings of the where the Barrington residents are meeting with their councillors. At the first public meeting, the Brethren presented their plan, and the residents also spoke opposing the plan, which I think took the Brethren by surprise. Before the second public meeting happened, the Brethren tried a very sneaky move. They tried to close the deal the day before the second public meeting took place to kind of forestall or preempt any further opposition. The residents got themselves a lawyer and managed to get an emergency injunction halting the sale. So at the second public meeting, it was very tense because suddenly litigation was involved. The residents were, they'd got a hold on the sale, and potentially they were suing their own councillors for the way that they'd proceeded. So the Brethren responded with some very vicious articles and a website they published, accusing the Barrington residents of religious bigotry and all sorts of nastiness. These are the Barrington residents that they had been kind of trying to woo and saying, yes, we're longing to be your neighbours. And the minute they get pushback from the residents, they turn against those same people and accuse them of all kinds of misbehavior, which is completely false, completely unfounded. So that's the point we kind of reached, more or less at the end of our previous podcast about this. And then the thing we're specifically covering today is that there was a third public meeting, which Lynette was at, and that is, which was very dramatic, and that's what we're going to show you recordings of today.
So on your screen, you'll see, actually go back to the first one. This is an article by the Daily Herald, and the title is Bullying, Threatening. Critics led South Barrington Park Board to cancel land deal, officials say. In a statement issued Thursday, 4th Avenue's Russell McCabe said the group is disappointed the Park District breached its agreement to sell the land. McCabe also accused opponents of the group's plan of religious bigotry and called their actions shameful.
So the result of this third meeting we're talking about today is that one of the councillors resigned, and the other councillors voted unanimously to cancel the deal to sell the land to the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. Now, they didn't go down gracefully. They all voted unanimously to cancel it, but at least two of the councillors gave some quite unpleasant speeches, attacking their own residents, their own constituents, in connection with the matter.
The second article that I pulled up here, it says, during the park board meeting, the commissioners each spoke at length about the upstanding character of our congregation and how fairly and openly we conducted ourselves through this process. These positive testimonies confirm that those attacking 4th Avenue did so on the basis of religious bigotry, not fact, Rachel McCabery wrote in the statement. So we were going to play these videos for you, and I want you guys to view for yourself whether you think this was religious bigotry. I guess one of the biggest things that frustrates me in all of this, just be pointing this out, is that they resorted back to calling themselves their gospel trust hall names instead of PBCC. Like, you notice all throughout the world now, we had that graveyard desecration thing. They were using the gospel trust name there. This one, they're using the gospel trust name. And that's just been recent. That's not been a current thing, right, Richard? That hasn't.
Yeah. It suddenly happened this year that on their planning applications, they're actually concealing the fact that they're Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, which is shocking. It means that their newly minted brand of Plymouth Brethren Christian Church, which they only invented in 2012, is now so tarnished that they don't dare use it, and they kind of hide behind the names of their individual gospel hall trusts. And I mean, just in connection with that last extract you read out, that was a statement given to the press by Russell McCabery, claiming that the councillors had given a wonderful testimony about their congregation, which is entirely false. You can listen to we're going to play you the recordings. You can listen to the councillors. They do not give a wonderful testimony about the Brethren congregation. So that's the context of that quote.
Okay, I have a thought about using everyone, like each locality using their own gospel name. It makes it seem more individualized and not a universal. Yeah. It seems like so the Chicago people are on their own little island and they're called the 4th Avenue Gospel. Over here, they're called so now they're no longer this universal Plymouth Brethren Christian Church.
It's a way to spread the blame.
Yeah.
And it's a way to not make them look like there's this one leader, one church. Now we've got hundreds of churches because they're all different names by their gospel. Gospel trust.
It also helps their fiction that their rooms are just used for the local numbers. So, it makes them look like a small church, and people see it and they don't anticipate that, they're going to cram 3,000 people in here and have a massive circus tent and be serving $100,000 worth of alcohol. It just looks like your little local church. It's a clever strategy, but it's going to backfire every time.
And while you're watching these videos, I want you to see one of their claims they made was that these attacks from the outside were coming from ex-members versus the community. And I want to reiterate to the PBCC, not the 4th Avenue Gospel Trust, but to the PBCC, that we only got involved in meeting 2. Meeting 2, we got involved. And
there had been a lot more meetings before this.
Exactly. That's true.
There had been a lot of stuff going on that even the residents weren't aware of, because that's what one of the
that's right.
That one woman, remember when she was after she said why she was canceling the sale, she goes through it how you weren't here for this, and all these different meetings that took place. The audience, the chairs were empty. And it
sounds like from 2020 or something like that. Like it
just went on for a long time without the residents even realizing that this was happening. That's why. And then this one woman on the commissioner's board, the Park District board, is saying that you guys weren't here. Where were you? They didn't know.
They
didn't know that this was happening. So they're also using that against the residents of why weren't you here when we were still in the planning processes of this. Well, the residents, as far as I know, didn't know. So that's also something to think about.
Sure. Yeah. Okay, so our first speaker here is an actual Barrington resident speaking.
I wanted to start tonight by thanking the commissioners who motioned to vote on canceling the area end sales contract. I know the issue has intensified over the last few weeks, and even requesting the vote is a courageous step on the part of this board. I'm not sure what motivated each of you to join the Park District Board, maybe to provide community service, improve certain park facilities, but I'm guessing it was not to have universal animosity directed towards you from your own neighbors. I'm one of those neighbors who has not been thrilled with the events surrounding Area N over the last couple months. I moved to South Barrington 5 years ago. I live on Acadia Drive, 10 houses away from the entrance to Area N. I appreciate Noel's comments tonight and those of the PBCC, and I believe fully in religious freedom and am not asking for anyone to discriminate tonight. I sent my own kids to Noah's Ark Preschool at the United Methodist Church. I go to Willow Creek's Carnival with them every year. They attended the Park District summer camp this summer, and they learned how to swim just down the hall. We love the community, we love our neighbors, and we plan to be here for life. But I'm not just any resident, I'm also one of the 9 plaintiffs litigating against you, apparently with baseless claims. And we're not just 9 random opposition members in the community. Our legal bills are publicly funded by 65 other neighbors, and they're part of more than 350 neighbors. They're part of more than 350 neighbors that signed a petition requesting each of you to vote to cancel the sales contract tonight.
You're here.
These neighbors, importantly, are from all across South Barrington, representing more than 30 different subdivisions within the community. I'm speaking to you tonight, neighbor to neighbor, against our lawyer's advice. I'm making a decision to do what I felt was best for our community because I'm asking you to make a very difficult choice and do the same thing by canceling the sale with a unanimous vote. The actions of the last 18 months were intended to get some much needed revenue for the Park District. The vote to cancel tonight is prudent because the Park District avoids the expenses of certain litigation with the community it serves. It also recognizes the renewed viability of residential development on the land, which is likely to bring both higher sales revenue and an ongoing stream of tax revenue to the district. This board will not be discriminating against a buyer. It will simply be following the precedent you established back in 2020 when you rejected a previous bid on Area N in pursuit of a higher sales price. I think most importantly is beyond the tactical reasons for a vote to cancel the sale. The reality is a vote to cancel tonight does something immeasurably beneficial. It puts nearly the entire community behind you. If you want to pursue a future tax increase, we have marketing experts who can help you explain to residents what the benefits would be. We'll campaign for it. If there's a new buyer of Area N, and we have community organizers that can get everyone to show up at Plan Commission meetings and advocate for those plans to bring you ongoing tax revenue. If you want to start fundraising galas, we have event planners that would much rather work with you on that than on continued opposition rallies. If you need corporate sponsorship, like some of the other local park districts have, many of us work for some of the biggest employers in the area. The list of possibilities for collaboration and community engagement goes on and on. When I look back on the last 8 weeks, what I'm most impressed by is the power of our community. It was not always demonstrated or deployed perfectly, but we're all now more aware of local politics than we were 2 months ago, and we're motivated to bring positive change to our parks and to our village. We want to work with you to deploy that newfound power within the community and propel the Park District forward in the months and years ahead. It begins tonight. It starts with the 4 of you. On behalf of a lot of the people in this room and many others who could not be here tonight, I ask that you each vote in favor of canceling the sale despite any concerns of future litigation. These residents fund the Park District through our taxes. We will be the ones shouldering any future burden. In taking this vote, you vote for the future of South Barrington, the power of your community and your constituents, and we move forward together as one.
So here's our next video. This is another South Barrington resident pleading his case. Again, so far we've not seen any signs of religious bigotry.
I don't think any of you folks on the Park District thought this would get to the point that it's gotten. I mentioned at the last meeting that this was so avoidable. I've been in your shoes in a prior elected office that I held for many years in Massachusetts. Far more difficult issues, eminent domain, major zoning changes, significant issues affecting our tax base. But you know how you deal with those? Proactively. By speaking to your neighbors, having public hearings, and being fully transparent in your process. I voted for that ballot initiative. I'm pretty familiar with ballot initiatives. I put many on the ballot myself. But you had to make sure that you maintain the right proper language when you do it. And I found that when I went back and looked at it, it was deceptive in terms of what actually had transpired and what was in that ballot initiative. I think you all know that. So, I also spent time when I moved here, I've only been here 3 years, attending a couple of meetings of the village board on the comprehensive plan. This proposal does not meet the requirements set forth that the town, the village, spent numerous dollars in developing in terms of the proper use of that land. And you all know that. Right. There will be no tax dollars generated from this development. Hear, hear. None. Yeah. So, I mean, if this ends up in the lap of the Planning and Zoning Commission and then the Board of Trustees, the question will be, why did you spend so much time on a comprehensive plan that you're not following? But I think it all could have been avoided. And I understand that the Park District, like every other municipal agency, when you look at your tax bill, even District 220, you're strapped for funds. We keep seeing tax dollars, levies going up, and tax increases. But if you speak to your neighbors and your residents, you'll find that they'll be receptive to that. Whether or not you have to issue bonds or you increase your tax levy, you would be supported by your neighbors. So I'm asking you, please do the right thing. Do the right thing for your neighbors, for your residents, and for the taxpayers in South Barrington. Thank you.
So, I mean, that just speaks for itself. And we're not hiding anything from you. These were the two resident speeches. This is all that the residents had to say at this meeting. And can you imagine any more decent, reasonable, democratic, helpful people than those two residents? There was nothing whatever that you could characterize as religious bigotry. They expressed their concern, they expressed their appreciation and support for the council. They put out perfectly good, sound reasons why they didn't want the sale to go ahead, and they did it in a very polite and respectful manner. And this meeting and these speeches were characterized publicly in the press by the PBCC, by Russell McAvery, PBCC spokesman, as shameful and religious bigotry. Now, of course, what Russell was counting on is that no one would have recorded what actually happened at the meeting, so that they could, they thought they could tell this lie, this horrible defamatory lie against the Barrington residents and get away with it because no one would know any different. But thank you very much, Lynette, for being there and taking the recording and redeeming the reputation of all the residents of Barrington and proving that there was no religious bigotry. There was nothing shameful about this at all. This was simply a really shining example of democracy in action in a free country like the USA.
I have that definition of religious bigotry, and I'm going to read it out. the fact of having and expressing strong, unreasonable beliefs and disliking other people who have different beliefs or a different way of life. Now, how many ex-members can stand here and vouch to be the recipients of that from the PBCC? Like, it was such a hypocritical moment when we read that. And I'm like, what are you like? Are you calling out yourself? Like, that's what it seems like to me, that this would be you calling out yourself. You are the biggest example of religious discrimination, religious bigotry, all those things that they sit there and blame everybody else on. They are, if you could look up in a dictionary of the definition of them, number one would be hashtag PBCC, right? So
absolutely. I mean, religious bigotry is where you have zero tolerance for anyone else's religion or anyone else's, worldview. And
Theology.
Theology. And who is more extreme in that respect than the brethren? Where if your own son was to say, instead of attending the Brethren church, was to attend a Baptist church or a Presbyterian church, whose theology only differs from the Brethren theology in some technical details, they would cut their son off, they would regard them as dead, they would ban them from the house, they would tear up their photographs, they would pretend they didn't exist, and they would write them out of their will.
they would tell them that they're better off dead than leaving.
Yes. Now, you can't get more religiously bigoted than that. That is the most extreme case. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of examples of that happening right now all over the globe, done by the Plymouth Brethren religious bigot Christian church. For them to call out these decent, democratic US residents and citizens and call them religious bigots, it's such an eye-watering hypocrisy. I mean, we're running out of words here. The English language is not adequate. It just has this one word, hypocrisy. It doesn't meet the case. We need a new word like super hyper hypocrisy, because this is the most extreme case you can possibly imagine of someone. I mean, the only example I could think of is like the Ku Klux Klan coming along, pointing the finger at someone and calling them racist.
What trumps everything for the Brethren, I think, is that they're sovereignly placed.
Yeah.
Okay. They've been born into the holy fellowship of God's Son, and we cannot, like, that needs to be like accentuated, or whatever the right word is. Like, these people are so entitled.
Yeah, that's the word, entitled.
Entitled,
like, yeah. Like, they think that because they are sovereignly placed and sovereignly born into this holy fellowship of God's Son, anything they say, anything they do, anything that happens, they are literally above reproach. Okay. So nothing can happen to them because of where they were born and how they were born into this cult.
It struck me listening to it afterwards, this religious bigotry accusation, that this is very like to give you a metaphor for it, it's very like the guy who thinks he's God's gift to woman. We all knew the guy at school who was just had the fantastic hair and the sporting record and thought he was just the greatest thing. And he sets his heart on some pretty girl. And so he makes his approach, he makes his proposition to this girl. But the girl has actually been speaking to some of this guy's exes. And so when he comes up to this girl, the girl tells him, look, I don't like your style, clear off. Then the guy who's been saying how wonderful this girl is turns round and says, oh, you're a slut and you're a whore and you're ugly, because he's been rejected. And because he's a narcissist and he cannot take rejection, he immediately turns round and starts shaming and defaming the very person that he had been trying to seduce. And this is exactly what's happened here, because if you look at that first meeting where the brethren make their case, you get this cringy moment when Steve says, we are longing, and these are his words, we are longing to be your neighbors. I mean, you know, he's sitting up in bed at night just thinking about all these lovely Barrington residents and how he would love to be next door to them. And damn it, when they quite politely say, thanks, but no thanks.
I want to be your neighbor.
You are religious bigots. It's shameful what you're doing. I mean,
But you know,
yeah,
the reason that they like Barrington is because it's really hard. Like, the neighbors are so spread out. The houses and lots are so large.
yeah.
It's pretty much just a wave. So you're pretty safe to say you cannot wait to be your neighbor when all you have to do is wave at them. You know, they're they're large lots out there. It's a nice place.
Just let the hedge go another couple of feet, then you don't even have to wave.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so what I wanted to do, we're going to bring up the PBC lawyer's speech, and of course we can't show everything. It's like hours of video, so we've just clipped here and there of things. But this is the lawyer's.
It's just disheartening to hear that one commissioner has already been chased out of her seat, and I do appreciate what you guys do. I know they pay you the big bucks to be here, and so I just appreciate that you guys are representing the community in that basis. I rise tonight to speak in behalf of 4th Avenue because, frankly, my church, when I was a small boy, went through something very similar. We actually had to go all the way to the Court of Appeals in Illinois to deal with the same type of slander and the pressure that has already chased one board member away. This is not an unfrequent or infrequent occurrence. This is the United States of America. Unfortunately, religious organizations face discrimination in real estate transactions and zoning. It's enough to make a law practice out of it, and not the type of law practice that anybody would go after, but I want to bring it to your attention because I both passed statutes that protect religious organizations from discrimination in the real estate and zoning areas. And they give us those rights because it's not infrequent for this type of behavior to occur. The Park District went through and dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's. We were about to close and we found out that there was a lawsuit that was filed. I got the opportunity to meet the Park District's attorney in court, Mr. Puma, and it was clear that what we needed to do is let's see what's in this lawsuit before we go forward. Well, it turns out the lawsuit's baseless, and that's what's going to be discovered on October 11th when the court will consider the neighbors' lawsuits, those in opposition to the lawsuit that was filed. My position on it is that 4th Avenue Gospel should not be discriminated against in the real estate transaction because of misperceptions about who they are, what they stand for, officials, because of who they decided to sell a piece of property to. The only way to stop that type of pressure is to stand up to it, because the more people cave to these unlawful efforts, the more people will be emboldened to use them. And I see it all the time. Attorneys file baseless lawsuits for improper purposes. We now know that with the motion being filed, Mr. Puma's reviewed it, I've reviewed it. It's without merit. It's going to be denied on the 11th. And we don't think that any vote should be taken in any event until October 11th when the court will deny the motion. Again, I think that, frankly, a lot of my script changed tonight after hearing that resignation. That's just truly despicable, and it's something that communities shouldn't support, nor should the representatives of the community who understood the referendum process.
So again, this is exactly the same accusation, just put in slightly more polite terms. He's claiming that the whole community opposition is down to religious discrimination. And it's very, very clear that it's nothing to do with religious discrimination. It's because the Brethren came in, they want to fence off the entire site, deny any public use of it. The church will not serve the area because residents will not be allowed to attend. And they're putting a massive store with a full-scale loading dock, a distribution center for groceries on the site. And that's not what the residents want. And the lawyer is furthermore claiming that one of the one of the commissioners had resigned because of the pressure. Now, the real reason the commissioner resigned is because we pointed out that there was a huge conflict of interest, in the sense that the two commissioners who were pushing the thing were both realtors, and they stood to benefit enormously from 65 Brethren households moving into the Barrington area and purchasing houses, which is a perfectly reasonable point to make. And rather than face being questioned about that in discovery, one of the two councillors concerned resigned just before the meeting, and the other one voted against his own idea and voted not to proceed with the sale. This lawyer is an extremely expensive and high-powered lawyer, and what he specializes in is cases of religious discrimination against Christian organizations. He's nothing to do with property or planning. He's all about religious discrimination. And most of his cases are like, where church schools kick out a teacher because they discover he's gay. He's actually part of a wider organization which has been classified as a hate organization. It's an organization to which Gerald Schipper belongs. Okay, so this lawyer, along with Gerald Schipper, who's the Brethren lawyer who's been pursuing me in Canada and has also been pursuing other ex-Brethren and caused a number of websites to close down, they're members of an international organization called Alliance Defending Freedom, which has been classified as a homophobic hate organization. And it's basically an alliance of lawyers and far right-wing politicians that work constantly behind the scenes to try and promote a homophobic politics and a homophobic agenda. And they basically provide free legal services to anyone who's been put into court for hate speech if it relates to anything relating to homophobia. So this guy is not just a lawyer to push a planning issue. He's coming at this in a very high-powered way. If he had had the opportunity, he would have come at this in a very high-powered way, claiming that that the PBCC, or Fourth Avenue, as they now seem to be called, were being discriminated against by religious bigotry. And because what he's appealing for is there shouldn't be a vote taken tonight, because they could see the whole thing slipping out of their grasp. He didn't want the vote taken, but of course, fortunately, the vote was taken. So, in fact, the case he's talking about that would come up on the 11th never came up because the whole sale was cancelled. But you can see what the PBC's policy was, what their strategy was to turn this into a major expensive court case and claim religious bigotry and religious discrimination as being the reason that they were being, pushed off this site.
Mr. Chairman and members of the board, thank you for the opportunity to appear here this evening. My name is Dale Diener, and I'm a member of the Fourth Avenue Gospel. We are a religious charity group owned and operated by a local congregation of the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church. Tonight I want to reaffirm our commitment to purchase the area and parcel of the South Barrington Park District and turn it from an overgrown, underutilized parcel into a beautiful space this community can be proud of. As you know, our proposal is to develop a new place of worship and a school for our 200 church members and their families. We have lived and worked and worshiped in the Chicagoland area since the 1860s. Through our business relationships and our community service activities, we have many customers, friends, and business partners in the area. We enjoy wonderful relationships with our community leaders and residents from all around the region. Our church has served and supported every community we've been part of, and this has been confirmed in letters by the Mayor of Northlake and other community leaders. Our church members are dedicated to the communities in which we live, and we are proud of our work in relief of local citizens who have faced adversity through fires, floods, and tragic events like the Highland Park shooting.
We have made no secret of our plans to use this site for our church and to build a state-of-the-art school for our families. We have taken care to ensure that we preserve the wetlands and limit environmental impact. We have made changes to the design to accommodate requests from locals to minimize traffic and maximize green space. Our $1.725 million bid is fair and above market value. Several previous developers and home builders have looked at the property and offered less money, but they have all walked away because they couldn't make their plans work. The community will also benefit. The property sale is above market value, will bring cash into the Parks District, and while as a not-for-profit entity, the church, like the Park District, will not be subject to property taxes. The continued operation of the school and the church will support local businesses and local suppliers. This project and our church have been derided by a few anti-church activists who have not set foot in South Barrington with false and hateful information and lies. We have published a website, thetruthaboutarean.com, to expose these false myths and provide the true facts about our intentions and about our church and about the development. The vitriol and the ignorant hatred being spread about us is hurtful to our families. Moreover, it borders on an attack on our constitutional religious freedom to congregate and worship. But this discussion today is not about the church or even about the project. It is about the sale of the property. We have been and will continue to address all community concerns and ideas about the property when we go through the planning approval with the Village of South Barrington. We remain committed to this project, and we know these attacks on our rights are not representative of the entire South Barrington community. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Now, I think the most striking thing about this speech, as compared to the speech by the Barrington residents, is the Barrington residents' speech were both met by very loud and extended applause. The speeches by the PBC lawyer and Dale Diener were met with a complete silence. And what that tells me is that every single person in that hall was against the plan. They didn't want the sale to go ahead. Now, on their publicity and their website, the brethren claim that a tiny fraction or a small but vocal minority of Barrington residents are opposed to the hall. So where, please, is the majority that actually wants this to go ahead? Not one of them bothered to turn up to the meeting, or you'd have heard them applauding at the end of Dale's speech. The fact is that none of the Barrington residents actually want this thing here. As for the rest of what Dale says, as he said, they launched a website, and once we finish with the meeting, we're going to go through that website point by point and take it apart. But clearly, this is not just a small minority of Barrington residents. There's no one bothered to come to the meeting to support the Brethren's plan.
His speech was the most narcissistic, gaslighting, hypocritical speech ever given. For them to sit back and complain that how their families were impacted by this attack. The rest of us feel sitting out here. Like, are you kidding me? I was pushed out because of what happened to me, and it was needed to be covered up. It's such a typical PBCC behavior when they're dealing with someone that doesn't know about the PBCC, which we were so grateful, Lynette, that you were able to step up and actually inform these people of who this group really is versus what they put forward. And we are going to share some screenshots of another PBCC Chicago lady who got on another app and literally was to say that they were going to have an open house. Like, they were lying through their teeth over what they were going to do if they could win this case.
And to talk about the impact to their families, what impact does the PBCC have on families?
Exactly.
They split up families everywhere. At least, Dale Diener, you have your family. Your PBCC has deprived us of our families.
Yeah, you want to talk about religious discrimination? Let's go.
Yeah.
That's why it was so good that it was Lynette sitting in Chicago and not me, because after that meeting, I would have not walked away. I wouldn't have walked away. And it's a good thing I'm poor and I don't have a private jet plane.
Yeah. So what we have to touch on here is that these people in Barrington or anywhere that are dealing with Brethren or Fourth Avenue Gospel or whatever they're talking about themselves these days, they're not banking on an ex-Brethren member. Like there cannot be an ex-Brethren member everywhere that there's some opposition going on, right? Like, so since I was there, I was able to, like, the people in Barrington don't know who and what they're dealing with until someone, like, that's why they get their own way so often, I think, is because, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? So if someone's telling you a beautiful story and what they're planning on doing and all this other stuff, and thankfully the residents did start digging, but I'm sure this happens in a lot of other localities where the residents don't dig, and then before you know it, there's this massive meeting room in a residential area, and it's like, so what I'm getting at is that the people that don't have a voice of an ex-member to tell them, you guys, that's a lie, that's a lie, that's a lie. Like, that's not true. They don't, how do they know that it's a lie? They don't. So that's
exactly. You don't expect a Christian church to be lying to you.
Yes.
I mean, if it was like an industrial corporation or a fish processing factory, you might expect them to be a bit devious and lie to you. But you don't expect good, shiny Christians that serve burgers with red tents to come and just do the most egregious, blatant lies to get their own way. So they just absolutely gaslight everyone. And this is why it's
referred to the shooting there, RRT. Like that RRT would not be there. They would not be going to any Highland shooting disaster catastrophe if they hadn't had to develop RRT. The only reason they go to these places and publicize it everywhere is to keep their charity status. And all those pictures and documents of it is proof of them doing their charity work.
Yes. Yeah. And most charities don't need to take selfies and I was part of it was called Area and News Channel, so it was like this it was updated often from the residents. So I was part of this resident like a group text thing, and I mean, there was never anything, not once was there anything that was religious bigotry. Not once was there anything that was, we don't want these people because of their beliefs. It was nothing like that. I mean, if anything, like during the actual, that last Park District meeting that we haven't got to Pete yet. Maybe I'm jumping the gun here, but when Pete was talking, I mean, he was lying. Okay. And a few different residents started to get a little bit loud, and a text came through from the main facilitator of the group. What did she write? She writes, regardless of the outcome of this vote, if you're in this room, please try to remain calm.
Wow.
If anything, this group of residents was they were the epitome of politeness and kindness and wanting to listen and trying to understand, but also wanting why they are saying what they're saying. They, like, what people have to also remember is that this proposed meeting room is in a residential area. It's not over with other factories. It's in people's backyards. It's in people's, that is the reason people were upset. It's in their neighborhood. It's not anything to do with religious bigotry. It was, we don't want semis coming down our streets where our kids play. We don't want extra cars every few
6
weeks.
a.m. Yeah.
Yeah, like it has nothing to do with what they're trying to portray. And like, that's what I'm saying. If ex-brethren weren't there, or if we're not like what we're doing today, like residents just don't know what they're dealing with in any town that they come into. Like, they don't know. And so that's what's so, that's why it's good that you guys are doing what you do.
And it's equally why the brethren are so outraged, because they've relied on this gaslighting and lying procedure for so long. And suddenly, thanks to the internet and thanks to ex-brethren Facebook pages and ex-brethren groups, suddenly they're finding it doesn't work anymore because people can find the truth for themselves.
Mm-hmm. And we'll go through the letter that the mayor gave and debunk that. And yeah. Go to Pete's video.
So Pete is the president of the council, and so he was the one primarily responsible for pushing the Brethren's agenda.
Petition, I appreciate that. It's irrelevant to us. It's the voters. It's the voters. If you didn't vote, I can't help you. But the voters went and the voters voted us in, and they voted for us to sell. After that, it's kind of too late. The time was when we voted. So I appreciate the petition. If they're right or wrong, I don't know, but it's irrelevant to us because you needed to vote. And if you didn't vote, that's not our fault. Park District is just a seller. We're just a seller. That's all we are. We're not engaged in it. We're not part of it. It's nothing. It's if there's a buyer, we sell it to the buyer who came in at the highest price, who was responsible. So as a responsible bidder, meaning they have the wherewithal, the funds to go through with this. They did that. Even though we didn't need to really do any kind of checking up on them, we did enough where we talked to the village of North Lake and the mayor, and I have it here too, and the mayor, just to ask about what they were like, as neighbors. What are they like as neighbors? And the mayor, glowing recommendation. Police chief never had any issue. The township never had any issues. So then, obviously, none of the neighbors had any issues. Otherwise, all those people would know about it. So about them being bad or cult and all that stuff, I don't know. They've been in North Lake for 40 years, and the mayor can't give them a higher recommendation. So I think a lot of that gets thrown out. There was some YouTube thing about some guy hiding in Canada. I looked up him. This is all online. He's apparently a criminal, so he's hiding out. And a lot of the emails and the websites that I'm reading or seeing from you guys, from the protesters, believe this guy more than they believe us or believe like the village, like the mayor of North Lake. And that's a little disheartening to me that some guy in a YouTube video sitting in his truck in the middle of Canada because he can't go back to his homeland because he basically sentenced to say 18 months in prison. It's all public, you can find it. That disturbed me a little bit. And we got killed with that they were going to serve liquor. And somehow this guy said something about serving liquor. Well, it took me 8 seconds to Google that, and you can't, within 100 feet of a school or a church, you can't sell liquor. You can't get a liquor license. And every board meeting I was at the village hall, it was never brought up once, but all of a sudden that's something to be, that I got all these emails screaming at us about that they're selling liquor at this, that they're going to get a liquor license. I don't know where that came from. So just throw that out too. It's all this stuff that wasn't needed to be part of it when we're trying to have good dialogue. And that's what bothered a lot of us. And then we're getting the emails to follow up with those. And if you don't think these are threatening emails, then you should come read them because they are. Personally, professionally, I'm not even going to go through. I highlighted a bunch of them, but I'm really not even going to go through it because I don't want people.
Do you know, I want to just touch on what he said that, it was disheartening because they were believing us more than the mayor. Well, I can guarantee you they're very smart they shouldn't be believing the mayor and they shouldn't be believing the police. You're not going to find police reports because you're not allowed to report anything. And I guarantee that mayor had something in his back pocket. And Pete, if you don't believe us, come live in our lives for a little bit and you'll really quick catch up to how the PBCC handle themselves. Go to openandcandid.com and read through that website. And you will find very fast how the PBCC work with government officials. It was very smart of the residents to take what we had to say and believe it. And on that note, let's jump into the whole alcohol thing. Okay, so if they can't get a liquor license there, that's not going to stop them. They'll just serve it. And then they'll charge them in their own little way when they have an event. We just had this happen in Palmerston North in New Zealand. What they do in one locality, what they do in one gospel trust, they do it all of them, regardless whether you need a liquor license or not. We have proof of the alcohol that was served in Palmerston North under tents in New Zealand, which they are then now compensating back their money to be able to pay for that. And those people were charged for that alcohol that was served there. So
on the meeting room grounds.
On the meeting room grounds. So it doesn't matter if the Campus & Co. isn't going to have a liquor store in there. As soon as that law changes in the States, I guarantee you they will have a liquor store in there. So as much as you want to believe, Pete, that what we are saying is a bunch of bull, it's not. We have the proof. We've lived it. We've experienced it. You haven't. You have not been there. You're being gaslit and lied to just like everybody else is. So it is important that the residents trust us more than the police and the mayor. They can go around and have any kind of politician, anybody in their back pocket, give them glowing reviews. But wouldn't you rather sit and talk to the people that have left and why they have left? This isn't just a handful of people. This is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds over how many hundreds of years that have left that are all saying the same thing. I never knew Richard before this. I had no clue who he was. Right? I never met Carmen until she had moved to Maple Creek, and I really didn't even talk to her. So these are all of us coming together to really shred the lies that are being told. And as you sitting there as president of this park commission board, sitting there being disheartened.
I can't see him getting re-elected very easily. I mean, he's just shredding the very people whose votes he needs to get in for his next term. And the other question is, if he is not getting any benefit out of this deal, why is he so upset about it?
Right.
He's very upset. He's very agitated. He does really behave like someone who's just seen a sort of a few $1 million get slippery under his grasp. He shouldn't care. You know, he's there to do whatever the residents want. If the residents don't want this deal, if it doesn't make any difference to him personally in a financial sense, why is he so upset about it?
He should be neutral. He should be neutral.
Yeah.
He's just representative of the residents. He should be saying what they want. Yeah. I mean, the other thing that was shocking is the way he dismissed their petition. They got a petition with 1,387 signatures on it. And he says, oh, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Why is it irrelevant? I mean, he's going to find out how relevant that is when the next election comes around.
Right. Well,
what an arrogant person.
Yeah.
So arrogant.
We also need to touch a little bit about this North Lake mayor. The meeting room isn't in North Lake. It's not. It's near North Lake, but North Lake, the meeting room is in unincorporated. It's in an unincorporated township. It's just not North Lake.
So they might as well get a recommendation from the mayor of Honolulu saying that the brethren have caused him no problem.
Yeah.
Lynette lives in Chicago and went to that meeting, so she knows where it is. This isn't just spewing off. This is Lynette logistically knowing that is false information, that the North Lake mayor isn't neighbors to those brethren.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing is he's spouting off about some guy in his car in Canada. Now, the reason I was in my car was because I didn't have internet at that point because we'd just moved house. So I'd driven down to the local library because it was a bit of an emergency to get this podcast out. I'm not actually living in my car, if that's what you were trying to imply, Pete. And the other thing is, why should they believe me rather than these other people? I gave them the receipts. I gave them the link to the planning website where you can look at the plans, the official plans of the Bristol meeting room, which is the same size. And you can look at the plans, you can count the seats, you can see the capacity. It's not just me talking. I'm pointing you to the public resources where you can check all these facts for yourself.
So we have another video of Pete that will wrap up with his rants that he did.
If you didn't vote, that's not my fault. But the same voters that put Colin in on this past April also voted yes for the referendum to sell the property. So we decided, we as a board said, okay, we got the referendum passed, the voters want us to sell. But we did it per the letter of the law, period. There were no side deals done with the church. There were no, all of that stuff is all garbage. So all those things, throw all those out, because that's all garbage. That's why poor Shelby got, she and I are in real estate, so I guess we must have done something bad with the church because they want to buy property. So I don't know how that happens, but that's what was coming back to us, and then we lost Shelby because of it.
So if there's nothing dodgy here and there's no side deal and it's all above board and they've done everything they should, why don't they go ahead? Because the residents' case will be thrown out on the 11th because it's without merit. But so that they'd go ahead. But no, they don't. They're running. So it kind of tells you that they really don't want any digging in this area.
We'll just let the viewers and listeners come to conclusion on that last one.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We'll let it speak for itself.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next video that we're going to go to is somebody else who was on the Parks Commission board, and I've only done a small clip of hers, but this lady really lit on fire, and she was only the reason I just did a small clip of it is because she really bashes her neighbors and friends, and she was really mad at the Barrington residents. But the clip I'm going to show you is the clip where she speaks about the PBCC.
We are being asked to break a fair and just contract made with the church. In all of this, I cannot identify one valid complaint against the church. The allegations that the church is a cult is unfounded. I am from a religious minority and have witnessed the other side. I cannot morally be part of accusations against a practicing religious group. The church has not done anything illegal. The church and Park District have not done anything illegal. If we have, please call the FBI and the cops and report us. I cannot be privy to religious discrimination.
So, honey, it is a cult. And if I get your email, I'll send you a video I'm working on right now. You can catch up all 74 podcasts in 2 hours. And by the time you're done, you'll realize it is a cult. And what we are doing is not religious discrimination. What they did to us was religious discrimination. What they are doing to everybody else is religious discrimination. So I will find your email and I'd be happy to fill you in all the holes. You may have gone through a lot of stuff through your own day-to-day life, but what we're dealing with the PBCC is completely different. Absolutely different.
The other thing is, and I don't know what religion this lady is, whether she's a Hindu or whether she's a Muslim, but she's definitely an ethnic minority. She looks like she comes from probably India. If you knew what the brethren thought about you, what they thought about Muslims and Hindus, what the brethren thought about people whose skins are not shiny white, you would not be sticking up for these people.
Yeah. So
they are the most racist and intolerant, and particularly against Muslims, and particularly against people with a darker colored skin. They're not the nice people that you think they are.
As much as they try to make people think differently.
If you're a woman and you're a Muslim and you've got dark colored skin,
and you're in a position of power, yeah.
No.
Not good. So our next video is when they did the vote.
So this is a vote as to whether to cancel the sale or not.
So the motion is to cancel the sales contract is the motion. So the motion is to cancel. So Jay, roll call, please.
Did you vote?
Yes.
You speak.
Yes. Yes.
Here.
Yes.
Preston.
Yes.
That was a very happy moment.
That was a good moment. Yeah.
They didn't go out without a fight, though.
No.
They really put up a fight.
There were a whole lot of sour grapes there. Yeah.
Yeah. No, there were some people that weren't laughing or smiling or clapping.
Yeah. So the extraordinary thing is, in spite of this, complete defeat, and even Pete Perizin, who had pushed the plan all the way through voting to cancel a sale, the Brethren didn't just kind of walk away quietly. There was this whole load of vindictive sour grapes. They seem to have somehow got the ear of the journalist of the Calgary Herald of the Chicago Herald.
Daily
and
Herald.
Yeah.
Richard's
Yes.
Herald, yeah.
Daily Herald.
The Daily Herald, and he's kind of been publishing articles more or less that they've dictated to him. Lots of extensive quotes from PBCC spokesperson Russell McCabery, and rather than walking away from this because it's obviously dead and they've obviously got no chance of resurrecting this deal, they go out with a massive kind of vindictive attack against the residents of Barrington and against the ex-Brethren community.
So this is their website that they made up called The Truth About Area N. And of course, they only put the stuff on it that supports theirs. And so if you go on and browse this area, it's got Shelby Elias's resignation letter, their letter to South Barrington residents, and the North Lake Mayor's letter of support. So we're actually let's just pull this Mayor's letter of support up here. Very short and sweet. To whom it may concern, the Plymouth Brethren Christian Church has been part of the North Lake community for approximately 40 years and have been great neighbors and members of the community. Their church has presented little or minimal effect on traffic or disruption to the neighborhood and surrounding area. In fact, their activities are so low-key that you forget that they're even there. I'm sure that with well-thought-out landscaping and good design, that their facility will blend into the neighborhood and soon become woven into the fabric of community as they were in North Lake. Yours truly, Jeffrey Sherwin, the mayor.
So the reason he's forgotten they're even there is because they're not actually there. So they must have been remarkably low-key.
I mean, they're in the area, but they're not. The meeting room itself is not in North Lake. That's what I like.
And they don't have any school or a
Superstore.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
I wish I had back in the day when we would have fellowship meetings every 3 months. I wished I had a phone back then to, like, the streets don't have sidewalks in Leiden Township, it's called. They don't have sidewalks. So the cars are just parked on kind of on gravel, parts of people's grass for each side, and buses are how big the buses are that come. They're idling on the streets. People are getting on and off. What part of this letter, if the Brethren, they know that letter is a lie. They just know it's a lie. And people walking, people that are at the homes of the Brethren, most people have moved out now. They've moved to further out west. but everyone walking, like groups of people walking with high heels and big scarves, and there's no sidewalk, so you're walking in the street. Like, yeah, there's no way that no one saw them
or didn't see them. Yeah.
Yeah, it like that letter is just such a slap in the face to the residents in the area of the Leiden Township meeting room. Really, it's just crazy.
And then they wrote a letter to South Barrington residents. And so we're gonna just go through this really quick. September 25th, dear friends and neighbors of South Barrington, we're writing to you from 4th Avenue Gospel Building, Inc., a registered 501c3 public religious charity established in 1972. We are a group that entered into a contract to purchase the parcel of land known as Area N from the South Barrington Park District. Area N has remained undeveloped for 19 years and is now an overgrown scrub and brush. 4th Avenue Gospel's $1.725 million bid for the property was the highest received in the recent public auction. A highest bid that has ever been received for this property. Let's stop here and go like it was the only bid.
Yeah. It was also the lowest bid, you know.
The highest and the lowest, yeah. The only.
We have put a lot of time and effort into carefully developing plans for the property that are environmentally conscious, low density, and that will add substantial value to the South Barrington community. Again, completely and utterly false. You can't add that kind of value to the South Barrington community it's just not. These plans will turn an undeveloped, unsightly lot into a beautiful site that includes a new place of worship and state-of-the-art school. I'm going to add here that nobody outside of the PBCC can enter into.
Yeah.
So again, it's not going to add any value to the South Barrington community. Our group and this project have been subject of much false information. Many of these lies have been generated by agitators from outside the U.S. and who have no connection to South Barrington or the greater Chicago area. Again, anybody who sits and listens to what we're saying know that what we're saying is not lies and that we are calling them out on their lies. This website breaks down the myths being promoted by these outside activists and provides the points to dispute what they've been saying about the project. We welcome a fair and open dialogue about the merits of the project and the benefits it will bring to the community, and this website provides our side of the story. Well, I have to say, reached out to Steve, Russell, I reached out to everybody, even did their work emails for an open dialogue, and I never heard back from anybody. Even put it on Facebook because they watch us. Nobody got back to me. So they do not welcome fair and open dialogue. They never have, never will.
Yeah, we put a lot of effort into trying to invite them to come on the podcast and give their point of view. Zip, no response at all. So, we're going to have the fair and open dialogue, and
yeah, you just don't get
we'll go through what you have to say, Russell and Steve, and we'll add some comments.
Please visit the website to learn the truth about Area N. We would greatly value your feedback and support and have included our contact information below. Well, we are now getting your
feedback.
We're doing your feedback here. So we'll go into that rebuttal. So their very first one, the opposition of Area N development is being led by local concerned citizens. They're saying that is a myth. Fact, the instigator of the attacks on the Area N project is Richard Marsh, who left the PBCC years ago after he killed a mother of 3 in a car crash for which he was criminally charged. The courts have confirmed that Marsh is a liar. He has been sentenced to prison in his home country, England, for his repeated contempt of court. And then they go in and try and give as much proof as they can. Again, I just want to pause before Richard jumps in here, that we never came into this till just the last few meetings. Right. So it has been led by the local concerned citizens up until this point when they started digging and realizing, hey, the PBCC isn't who they say they are. And if you look at the letter that I read just previously, in that letter, if you go back and read it, the PBCC wasn't mentioned once. It was all 4th Avenue Gospel, which is the PBCC. Okay, go ahead, Richard.
Yeah, so our only involvement in this, my only involvement was I put together a short video which just had a few key points. One is that when they say the maximum capacity of the meeting room is 1,000 persons, that's completely untrue. And I gave all the receipts, all the planning for similar rooms around the globe, that actually this is a 2,000 capacity meeting room, and if they fill up the foyer, you can get nearly 3,000 in. None of this is rebutted. Nowhere in this rebuttal do they come back and say, well, no, it really is a 1,000 seat meeting room. So if you're going to accuse someone of being a liar and having lied about this project, then you have to call out the lies. You have to say, Richard said this, the truth is this. Richard said this, the truth is this. The key point is that they had only given the capacity of the meeting room as 1,000, whereas in fact it's 2,000. Now they're not rebutting this because they can't, because they know perfectly well this is true. And there were a number of other points that I made and that I gave receipts for and that we will be going through. We're going to address all the other points on here, these personal attacks on me about the accident and the court cases. We're going to address that at the end of this podcast. Yeah. But if they're going to call me a liar, then tell me what I've lied about. Tell me what statement I've made that's untrue.
Okay, the next one is myth, lack of transparency. The Park District and the Village have been working with 4th Avenue Gospel since January 2022, unbeknownst to the community. They've also misled people about how the sale would affect taxes. Facts. 4th Avenue Gospel has cooperated with local authorities at every step along the way and has been fully transparent in providing impact assessments and plans to locate a church, building, and school on the property. The connection between 4th Avenue Gospel and the PBCC congregation was fully disclosed since the developer first expressed interest in properties on public record as early as 2020. The fact that the end user of the development is a not-for-profit tax-exempt entity was clearly stated on the record. All Village and Park District meeting records are public record. The Park District has acted within its authority, and the developer remains committed to working with the community as demonstrated in its recent hearing and the developer's consideration of specific community concerns.
Well, I mean, the reality is that they put round a referendum asking to sell this land, and it's stated on the referendum that by selling the land, it would increase the tax revenues to the city so that they wouldn't have to do a tax hike for the residents. And of course, what they actually were selling to was an entity that would not be paying any property tax. So indeed, they did mislead people about how the sale would affect the taxes. Now, there is a kind of a half-truth here in that if you had been reading all the council minutes, if you'd actually been along to attend the council meetings, you might have picked up 4th Avenue Gospel Trust name at some point. But the residents had no idea what they were dealing with. Even if they'd picked it up, they would just assumed it was a conventional church that they could attend, that was a place of public worship. So, yeah.
And this goes back to what Lynette was saying earlier. I do agree with her on why they're really doing this change, because had they said PBCC, people go in and Google PBCC. Well, yeah. What comes up in our last year's worth of work? Yes. Right at the top. So I could see why they are now turning to using just the gospel names. Absolutely. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next one. Myth, selective advertising. The Park District intentionally targeted residents least affected by the sale while neglecting to inform those who would be most impacted. And their fact is 4th Avenue Gospel has been informed by the Park District's legal counsel that all required notifications according to routine and pre-approved procedures were followed.
That's a funny rebuttal, isn't it? Yeah, because they're not actually saying, yes, we did notify the nearby residents. They're just saying, well, we ticked all the boxes. And the fact is the nearby residents all said, well, they never got the notification. So,
like, people actually went to the post office to get the list, and the residents that would have been affected by this did not get the flyer.
Yeah. Case closed.
This is the perfect politician's way of answering something, right?
Yes. It's a very devious answer, isn't it?
Exactly. It doesn't really answer they don't really answer it. The next one, prearranged sale. That was their myth, prearranged sale in quotations. Facts. At no point was there any prearranged sale. The Park District informed 4th Avenue Gospel that a public auction would be required for the sale, whereby any potential buyers could be present to place bids on the property. 4th Avenue Gospel was the highest bidder and operated in full transparency throughout the process.
This is comical because they arranged the auction, which the actual advertising for the auction was some like tiny little column of print in a newspaper that has a very high subscription cost.
It was, yeah,
and
it's the same newspaper, the Daily Herald.
yes, and then the only people that turn up is the Fourth Avenue Gospel Trust. They'd set the minimum bid at 1.75 million. Fourth Avenue bid that. Bang! The hammer goes down. Sale closed. And they're still saying they were the highest bidder. I mean, it's such a stupid assertion. Now, I want to put an analogy in here because both the two people who were pushing this, which is Pete Perizin and Shelby Elias, the VP and the president of the Barrington Park District, they're both realtors. They both know perfectly well the value of advertising and the importance of advertising a property if you want to sell it. So let's take the analogy that you had a $2 million house and you went along to these two realtors and you said, okay, I'm going to be out of the country. I want you to sell this house for me. So when you get back a year later, you find they've sold the house for a very low sum. You're going to say to them, well, did you advertise it? You know, did you put photos on your website? Did you like mail shot? Did you promote this thing? And they say, oh, no, we didn't do any of that. We didn't take any photos. We just put it up for auction and we put an advert saying there was going to be an auction. I mean, it's so obvious that they did the absolutely bare legal minimum. And yet, technically, they have ticked the box in that they've done a public auction to sell the property, but they have done absolutely nothing to promote it. And it's just staringly obvious that it was pre-arranged. They arranged with the brethren that they'll have this auction, they will do the absolute minimum of publicity, and, you know, hopefully you can come in, there won't be any competition.
Okay, next one. Myth, pre-approval. The Park District walked the church through village pre-approval processes a month before allowing the community to vote on the sale. Facts. Fourth Avenue Gospel expressed interest in multiple properties throughout the area and conducted typical due diligence on this property. The current zoning classification for this property allows for church and school use.
So again, this is a sort of classic answer that doesn't answer the question. They're not saying it wasn't pre-approved. They're just saying they expressed interest in multiple properties. So what? It's not even relevant to the point you're making. So it's just some waffle to kind of cover up the fact that they had been working very closely with the Park District on this.
But notice what they say here. The current zoning classification for the property allows for church. It allows for a public church and public school.
Exactly.
It doesn't allow for private church and private school. That's what, like, this is where they are still having so much pushback against this. They're just denying the fact that the LUDs or the PUDs or what they were called something. Sage called them. It's in the zoning, all the zoning paperwork.
Yeah.
There is an allowance for that, but it's for a public church and a public school, not the brethren. What they, we got to just.
They would need rezoning.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one, myth. Values and future use. The church proposed use includes an elementary school building that contains a liquor store, conflicting with South Barrington's community values. Facts. This is a lie. The development includes plans for a school store operated by the church. There will be absolutely no alcoholic products sold on the property. The project is led by local developers who have served the community for decades. To suggest that these upstanding community members would undermine community values is absurd. Oh, I wish we could just throw all the we have
upstanding community members. Yeah, that's
the whole meeting hall itself has a back room. So if the man of God comes in, it's stocked with alcohol, right? Like alcohol is going to be on the premise.
Okay, so they've now admitted it's a Campus & Co. store, when in their initial planning application, they called it a gift shop or a school store. It's not a school store. It's a full supermarket. They sell food, groceries, clothes, home accessories, toilet paper, everything that your Walmart would sell. Not such a wide range, but they sell the full range of goods. And just go on Google, put in Campus & Co. and alcohol, and this is what pops up. Alcohol, Campus & Co. Alcohol, beer, spirits, liqueurs, wines. Campus & Co. Northampton. Alcohol, whiskey and bourbon, brandy and cognac, gin, rum, vodka, mixers, liqueurs. And I had a look at Campus & Co. Northampton, and they've got no less than 200 different kinds of alcohol for sale at their Campus & Co. store. Now, fair enough, the Brethren in Chicago might not be able to get a liquor license for that location, given that that's the local residents' laws. But it was perfectly reasonable of us to raise the question as to whether they would be selling alcohol from their Campus & Co. store, because that's what they're doing. It's being rolled out all around the globe in a huge way, selling alcohol from their Campus & Co. stores. And in any case, even if they're not selling it from that store because they can't get a license, they will still be serving huge quantities of alcohol at the meeting hall on the same site every time they have a fellowship meeting. So here's a Campus & Co. A note it says your superstore. Now they got a very nasty attack saying Richard Marsh is lying, saying it's going to be a superstore. Campus & Co. is a superstore, and here's their website to prove it. So this is just the first 4 out of 200 different lines of alcohol that they sell in Campus & Co. stores.
Okay, so the next one is myth, sanctity of park space. Area N has been a public park for 21 years, benefiting everyone. The proposed sale turns it into a private asset that serves no local resident. Facts, Area N is a complete overgrown area of land owned by the park district, not currently used as a public park. The community expressed its desire to develop Area N when it previously voted to approve a sale in the local referendum. This development will clean up this eyesore and complement the local community. No one claimed Area N was benefiting the community until 4th Avenue Gospel proposed putting a church on the site, at which point anti-church activists came forward.
And that's not true. Like the whole time, like when I would make posts on the Barrington Facebook page, I would have residents come at me in full force and saying, we are not touching this. The Freedom of Religion Act, like no one is against a church. No one. Like it was very vocal when I would try to post stuff. I would have these residents telling me this is not for this page because we are not against churches. I mean, so for them to say this, at which point anti-church activists came forward, no, there was maybe people came forward because of their neighborhood being altered and the simple fact that a private church and a private school and they can't bring their kids there.
Even with ex-members. I mean, you're not, Lynette, you're not anti-church. Carmen's not anti-church. I'm not anti-church. Richard isn't anti-church.
None of us are. No.
I'm anti-cult.
Right.
I'm anti-cult. But I realized I would love the PBCC to become a church. I would love for it to become a church. That would be like the biggest transformation they could do is make it a church.
And
we could all retire. Yeah.
Take away the separation issue.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the other thing here is that Area N is not completely overgrown. If you go on Google satellite view, it's got like hedges and trees all around the perimeter and a great big area of open grassland in the middle. I mean, it would make a very nice public space or wildlife reserve or, nature park. And the point that the Brethren have been very, very careful to conceal is that all their meeting room sites are completely security fenced with heavy duty security gates, cameras and floodlights. The whole area would be denied any public use at all. Whereas if it was a conventional public church, the nice ones with a spire, generally speaking, the public's allowed to use the ground. You can walk your dog there, or you can have a picnic there, and they'll be holding like church events. They'll have Thanksgiving meals to which everyone's invited. A church is normally a public facility, and also churches get used extensively for non-religious functions. Like often they will have like an evening meetup club for lonely people, or a women's knitting circle, or
like even book clubs,
games night, or a book club. They're a public facility that's available to be used to help the residents. None of this would happen with
they use churches
PBCC.
for to feed the homeless on certain nights of the month. None of that would be happening.
Yeah.
Okay, the next myth. The Park District purchased Area N 20 years ago for $3 million. The fact that they're now accepting $1.7 million is a huge loss for the community and suggests that they gave 4th Avenue Gospel some sort of a sweetheart deal. Facts. The original purchase of $3 million for the property was paid above market value to settle a legal dispute with the developer of the Woods community. Since then, multiple developers have backed out of developing the property. 4th Avenue Gospel presented the best legitimate offer in 20 years and was selected by the Park District in an open and transparent process. 4th Avenue's Gospel plan will bring in far less traffic and disruption than the tract housing that had previously been planned for the site, plans that the community did not object to. The present opposition is thus based on anti-religious bias, not on the merits of 4th Avenue Gospel's high-value, low-impact offer. I mean, you can't sit here and read them without laughing.
Can't make it up, can you?
Can't make it up.
Look at the videos we've got and the pictures we've got of things like the massive fellowship meetings with the huge circus tents outside the front, the coaches lined up down the road, and people in high-vis jackets trying to direct the traffic while the local residents are driving past. Far less traffic and disruption. I mean, if they put, say, 20 houses on there, the volume of traffic is going to be spread over the whole day. And so in terms of the total number of car movements per year, it might not be much different. I suspect it would be a whole lot less than the Brethren. But the point is, the Brethren, they all arrive at the same time. So you've got these 65 households, then you've got the interchange. They're all arriving, they're all leaving at the same time. And then you've got their school traffic and their shop traffic and their semi-trailers of groceries going in and out. 20 residential houses do not get serviced by semi-trailers full of groceries. I mean, it's hardly worth commenting on this because it's so ridiculous. And then they conclude that, well, because it's not traffic that's the issue, it must be anti-religious bias.
Yeah, let's go to the next one. Myth. 4th Avenue Gospel's development will destroy the wetlands and the walkability of the area. It will take away valuable land from the community. Facts. 4th Avenue Gospel has meticulously designed its plan to preserve the wetlands. Only 3.4% of the wetlands will be affected by the development, and multiple experts were involved in the planning, including civil engineers and wetland consultants. This is a very low impact percentage as compared to any previous proposed development work done on this property. Years ago, Area N was stripped by its prior owner of any of its valuable trees, as confirmed by an expert arborist.
This is again a classic case of putting a rebuttal out that doesn't actually answer the point. Now, I don't know if anyone has claimed that their development would damage the wetlands. I never heard any such claim. But what they're saying is it will destroy the walkability of the area. Yes, it will destroy the walkability of the area because the whole place will be behind security fences. You won't be able to use it at all. And then they tack this random thing on the end that it was stripped by its prior owner of any valuable trees. Well, what's the relevance of that to any of this? I mean, if you look on Google Street View, you can see it's got a lot of nice, big, mature trees, as well as a lot of young trees on the site. I mean, who cares what the value of the trees is on the site? So this is it. This is the end of their rebuttal. So the only points that we haven't covered are basically the personal attack on me on the very first issues.
Okay. Okay. So this is an app. It's called the Nextdoor app. I was not aware that this was happening. I was getting texts from a local resident of South Barrington asking me, is Julie Worley PBCC? So I decided to, I had the app, so I decided to search Julie. And yes, she was not the Julie that I know. I mean, Julie is petite. She's got hair down to her ankles. I mean, it might be cut now, but back then it was down to her ankles. She's very submissive, very kind. And here she is, her and Andrea McCabery, who happens to be Russell's wife, Russell McCabery, this PBC spokesperson, they're having this conversation with local residents, and they're not actually turning the other cheek. I was shocked, honestly, at their social media bullying, their online, just the way they were speaking to the actual people that could potentially be their neighbors. And it was just, so it was just very, very interesting. And here's Andrea replying to someone after this meeting hall is built. We will be glad to have an open house once the project is finished. Yeah.
And it's kind of shocking when these are people who aren't even allowed to speak a word in their own congregation.
In the meeting room, yes.
They cut them loose to savage the residents of the area, which is...
So that was what was so...
On one hand, it's kind of good to see Plymouth Brethren women actually having the boldness to speak out, but unfortunately what they're saying is simply not true.
It's just the lies like their husbands. So I'm going to read this one out. So this is Andrew McCabery. We interact with the community just as all residents do. We shop at local stores and use local services. We have been in the Chicagoland community for over 150 years and have good relationships with our neighbors. Please see letter below from the mayor of Northlake, where we have been over the last 4 decades. We volunteer at local charities and donate to local food pantries. We also do a lot of outreach through RRT. We would be glad to have an open house once the project is finished.
It's too late then, isn't it?
Like this comment of Andrea's is for me, it's a weird comment unless things have changed. I mean, I left in 2009, and in 2009, you only waved to your neighbor. You did not interact with your neighbors. We interact with the community. No, we did not. We waved. Like my neighbors, I'm looking at their houses right now. They know Lynette before 2009 and Lynette after 2009. And Lynette after 2009 would talk to them at the fence. She would go up to the fence and introduce herself. Like this whole thing. I don't know who is actually writing this, if it's actually the girls themselves writing it or if they've been told what to write. Yeah.
This is a Julie Worley post, which starts off by, calling me a liar and a criminal and so on. But then she makes a series of other points that just need comment. The first one is suggestions such as the school store. These are my supposed lies. Suggestions such as the school store being a superstore with massive amounts of traffic, selling alcohol, used as a distribution center, trucks coming day and night, etc., are false and are promoted to stir up opposition. Here's the school store. This is the plan submitted to Barrington Council. It's 6,405 square feet. And you can see it's 106 feet long by 67 feet wide. This is not a school store. This is a supermarket. Now we can prove this because the Campus & Co. have their own internal documents that gives the size of store needed for different size congregations. So the size of the store shown on the drawing is 6,405 square feet, which is nearly 600 square meters. It's 595 square meters, which corresponds on Campus & Co.'s own documents. They say for a population of 200 to 400 congregation size, you only need 300 square meters. So this store is twice the size that will be needed for the Chicago congregation size. Okay, so this is also a Campus & Co. internal document, and it says large stores have fridge and freezer storage and can accept and store bulk pallets. So generally, we have large distances between small stores to maximize our buying power and negotiate the best deals, which includes minimizing logistic costs, as well as our key objective of reducing our overall volunteer labor input. We will explore the use of a hub store concept. Okay. Within our 4-store size model, we will identify hub stores in strategically located places. Hub stores will be larger than the population they serve, which of course this is. It's twice the size of the population it serves. They will have additional storage, preparation, manufacturing, and logistics capabilities. Some examples of these are additional investments, a walk-in fridges, forklift, pallet storage area, and larger delivery area to facilitate trucks. So now if we go back to the plan, the previous slide, we can see very clearly on the right-hand side of the store, there is a semi-trailer loading bay with a 65-foot driveway, which is exactly the right length for a semi-trailer to back up to the loading bay without blocking the road. So when I said on my little short video that this was going to be a hub store and that it was going to have semi-trailers and a loading bay, I wasn't just inventing it. I was reading Campus & Co.'s own literature, and this is exactly what it's going to be. But Julie Worley says I'm lying, but the drawings say otherwise.
So going on to Julie Worley's post here, one of the other points on here that I want to point out is in this post, she says, our churches are places of public worship. This term has been wrongly interpreted to mean unlocked doors. Persons can go as you wish. Anyone is allowed to attend services, and there is a process to apply to come. Having a process is perfectly legal and is the case with other denominations. Well, I have to say that I do not know of any other churches where you have to apply to go. I mean, those are elite places, like a golf course that you've got to, if you've got these private golf courses, you've got to apply to go to those. This isn't a golf course. These aren't elite things. This is a mainstream Christian church is what they over and over call themselves. So a mainstream Christian church shouldn't have to have an application to come. You should be able to go up to the door and walk in on a Sunday morning when you want to attend church. So again, Julie, you have completely taken this out of context with your lies once again. And no, your church are not public places of worship. Yeah. And if they are, then I suggest everybody to start applying to go there to show that they are not public places of worship. It's just, this is the furthest thing from the truth that we can go through.
When we go to church on Sunday morning, we just go to church. We park in the parking lot and we walk in and they say, glad to see you. There's no one that we have to email first. There's no one we have to meet with. And along those lines, when we were brethren and we had concerns about people at the morning meeting, at the Lord's Supper, 6 a.m. Lord's Supper, we had concerns about different people that were at that point when you're brethren, that's a big deal. So I don't care about it now. But at the time when we're brethren and we're in such a clean company of we're such a pure company, we knew there were kids in Chicago that were smoking weed. And we had an issue with it. So we talked to someone and said that, like this conversation that we're promoting about this pure company, people that are coming in from partying the night before and smoking weed, it just goes against this separation narrative because no one else can come in. Like this separation doctrine is like, this is why they talk about the way they do about other churches, because riffraff. I was told that any sort of riffraff can come into the church that you go to, Lynette, at one of my priestlies. Riffraff? No.
Oh, wow.
the riffraff was at the Lord's Supper inside the exclusive Brethren Christian Church. There was some riffraff.
Yeah.
But so, yeah, this whole narrative that they are telling themselves, and you tell yourself something enough, you start to believe it.
Yeah.
And if it's the only thing you've ever been told, that's all you know. So
I don't think they realize what a public place of worship is because they've never experienced it. They have no clue. So to them, have this application to come to them is like, oh, well, we are a public place of worship. But I just want to let the PBCC know, from the other billions of people that are on this planet, besides their 50,000 plus people, that we can all contest to say that, no, this is not a public place of worship. It's just not. Yeah.
Right.
Going back to the drugs, let's go on really quick comment here about the drugs. I mean, weed is the last of their issues now, how many years later? Because I mean, obviously that was back when you were in there. I mean, we've had so many reports of the drug issues that they have in there. It's just, I mean, the people in there have done more drugs than I've actually seen in my life outside of my home.
And crystal meth, and it's the married men, the business guys doing it.
Right. But see but that's what annoys me, because this separation doctrine, the people that are smoking weed and doing the drugs are still above reproach because they're still brethren. Do you?
No. Their only virtue is being in the place. They don't.
They're still part of the holy fellowship of God's Son. So that's okay. It's still okay to break bread with them, but not the riffraff that I'm breaking bread with in my communion at my church.
Yeah.
Because no one is vetted. Anyone can come in on a Sunday morning. I'm like, this argument makes absolutely zero sense. Really.
CC allow anything to go on in there as long as they're not caught. If they're caught and it's like publicized, well, then those people are usually shut up or withdrawn from, right?
Right.
I mean, the thing is, Lynette, that in the brethren, you have to break bread with them, even if you know they're wicked persons, even if you know
exactly. That's where I'm going with this.
But in your church, if you don't want to break bread with someone, if you don't want to have them round for a meal, have them to your house, you don't have to.
Right. Yes. One of my priestlies where, I mean, I'm getting off the track here, but it just annoys me that I was, like, the priest said to me, "Are you okay, Lynette, with your 4 children spending eternity in hell?"
That's so shocking. Yeah.
And it was because I was going to a different church and I was at a rival table. I was breaking bread. Like, the absurdity of the whole thing. Yeah, it's just, I mean, I told him that doesn't work with me. You can't scare me with those lies.
If anything is.
Yeah.
If you are in a high-demand religious group and need help, please go to oliveleaf.network. To share your story or be a guest on the show, email info.getalife@proton.me. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to Get a Life, and comment.